Hello, Michael here with a bonus tutorial for patrons. Following up from our cloud tutorial the other day, I'm just going to show you something a little bit extra that you can do with your clouds with some text. You'll see that I'm here in Photoshop to begin with. What I'm going to do is I've just got a square document and it's 1000 by 1000, and I'm just going to create some text that we can actually project into our clouds. You would have seen me use this effect at the end of the channel relaunch video. If you haven't seen that, just jump back. I'm sure you have seen it because you're patrons, but if you haven't, it's right at the very end. And what we're going to do is we're just going to create some text. I'm just going to say hello, and we'll increase the size of that, and just for good measure I'm going to center it. Now it's important to have a square document, and we're just going to save this as a PNG for now. It's also important that we use a white background and black text, or the other way around. We just need the contrast for separating the text from the background when we are going to bring this into Maya. So let's save that. It's not super important what file format you use. You could use a JPEG, use a PNG, it doesn't really matter. Just don't use anything too weird. It's something like a pretty standard format which has got a reasonable quality, so you don't get any aliasing. Make sure you have a reasonable resolution for your image as well. If the text you're going to be using is using close-ups, or you want it for some extra types of geometry, which you could obviously do with this, you might want to just increase the resolution to maybe 2K, but 1K for this example will be fine, so we're going to save that. Okay, so just in a new document, we're going to create a polygon plane, and the divisions that you want to use will help the resolution or the way that the text is projected. So I usually go sort of 50 by 50, or if it's something more complex, if the letters have got like the letter R, for example, where there's a little hole in the R, sometimes it will have difficulty translating that hole if you've got too low a resolution plane. So 50 by 50 or 100 by 100 will do the trick. And then what we're going to do is modify, and we're going to convert, and we're going to go texture to geometry, and I'm going to go to options, and then I'm going to select my text file, open it up, and then search radius. So I think everything at default, we can just reset settings, is okay. I can quantize that if you want, which will just make everything squares rather than triangles. Triangles will obviously give you less vertices, but if you wanted to, say, smooth subdivide this in future, it might obviously give you some issues. So I'm just going to quantize that. And the lower your search radius from memory, the better your resolution of your text will be. So I'm just going to lower that a bit, and I think everything else will be fine. So we'll apply and and we'll select our image, apply and close. All right, so you get hello written there like so. So what we're going to do now is just jump into the Hypershade editor, and it will have given us some materials, and we can use those to select the white background. So we're just going to right click and hold and select object with material, and we go in here and just hit delete, and we'll do the same for the other white one, and that's taking care of the ones inside the O. Now if we select the cloud text, you'll see that the only thing selected is the word hello. So I'm going to hit Shift P to unparent it from the plane, and then I'm going to delete its history, which is Alt Shift D, and then I can delete that plane, and all I've got is the hello now. So what we can do is export this as an OBJ. If your OBJ export option is not there, you'll need to turn on that plugin in your plugins, and we're just going to chuck this in my assets. Now we're going to open up our file with the cloud, and we'll import our text OBJ, which I've just saved onto assets, and cloud text OBJ. Increase the scale of that, and I'm just going to rotate it, holding down J so it snaps. Alright, something like that. And then I want to make this three-dimensional, so I'm going to go to face mode, select all the faces, deselect that background, hit Control E to extrude, and then I'm just going to extrude that way. I'm going to make this kind of deep. We can resize this after the fact, but that should be okay. So we've got a big word that says hello. Now we need to get it to the right size for our cloud. This cloud is fairly non-uniform, so compared to the title cloud that I used, which was fairly flat, this method on this particular cloud will not show up quite as well. What we could do is actually squish the cloud a bit. Might not look super cool, but we'll give you a better example of what the text in the cloud should look like. Yeah, that'll be a bit closer. The O might be a bit of an issue. So at the moment, if we rendered it, we just get a big word that said hello. We're going to change the render stats for this. So we'll just go into render stats, go into, under render stats here, we just want to turn off primary visibility. And then if we run an IPR, now because we squished the cloud, it's obviously a little bit less dense, but that's okay. As we push the text in, you'll start to see it appear there in the cloud. And if we wanted to make sure that it was getting more of the cloud, we can obviously just make that a bit longer until it's protruding or occluding more of the cloud like that. So you can get a cool little text effect by doing so. This cloud obviously doesn't, I should have actually just used the one that I used in the thing, but you can see how it works there. Now what it's doing is it's actually casting shadows. There's no primary visibility on the object, but the object itself is casting shadows within the cloud. So if I made this longer than the cloud, it's not like I could see through it. It's not acting like a boolean, it's not cutting the cloud out itself. But the more it's going into the cloud, the deeper the shadow will appear, or the darker will appear in the cloud. But it's a neat little effect that you can use, and you can see that it sort of casts some nice shadows off the letters itself, and can work quite well for a bunch of different things. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it, and it's just a little quick tutorial for you patrons, and just another thank you for your support with the channel and helping us bring out tutorials like this for everyone to see. This first one I'm going to put up on YouTube as an example for other people who aren't patrons like you already excellent, awesome people out there. So if you're watching this on YouTube, this is just an example of what patrons are getting. So feel free to check out the Patreon and become a patron and get extra little tutorials like this. So as always, thank you for your support, patrons, and we'll see you in the next tutorial.